Hi, this is Beth Billings with Around the Table Yarns, and today is Sweater Club. We are finishing up the Quintessential Cardigan by Churchmouse Yarns and Teas, and I'm really excited because I've been saving these buttons from Churchmouse Yarns and Teas forever. So I have these beautiful little black buttons for my black cardigan, and I'm going to demonstrate how to sew on a button. The way that I do it, there are lots of ways to sew on a button. There are lots of things you can use to sew on a button, and far be it from me to say that there isn't a better way or a different way that is just fine. And before I get into that, I wanted to show some choices for buttons, for button tools. So here are, this is very bright. I unbright it. Oh, that's just brighter. Oh, please. Turn it off. Oh, that's a little better. Okay, so I have a couple of things here. I have some mending cotton that I bought in California. I think it's Lithuanian, or I'm not sure. I think it's Lithuanian cotton. It's nice because it's multi-strand, so you can sort of pick your own adventure. I have some of the cashmere lace weight that I use. So this is just black and it's a lace weight. I don't think I would use this for sewing on a button because it's not particularly strong. So you don't want to have a fiber to sew your buttons with that comes apart really easily. So this is a bad choice, but a cotton is not a bad choice because I really have to pull. I can't get it apart. So that's a nice, firm, strong thing. I also have some sashiko cotton. It's rounder. It's multi-plied, but you wouldn't want to separate it. This is intended for sewing stitches and doing a lot of stitch work. So I think this could be really nice if you have some of that. I also have, look at this. This is very old. It's probably too old to use. I think my mom told me once that you're not supposed to use old thread. This is button sewing thread from my mom's sewing machine. And it's mercerized, it's shiny. I don't know if you can see it's sort of shiny on the thing. So I think this was probably good for sewing big buttons on coats. It's very strong, very thick thread for hand sewing your buttons on your coats. And then another option is embroidery floss. Let's see if I have any good embroidery floss. I don't have any black. Hello, that's hysterical. I have dark green. I don't have any black in here. So I guess I'm not going to use my embroidery floss. I do have this mending cotton, but embroidery floss would be a nice option. Thread is a nice option, but you want to make strong buttons or strong joins of your buttons. And so I feel like the stronger, the more plied, so thread is just usually one ply. And I feel like if you had a little bit more, that would be not a bad thing. Okay. So I'm going to use this cotton, and one of my students in the class today said, make sure you tell everybody to use a needle that goes through the buttonhole. And I was like, I promise I will tell everybody to use a needle that goes through the buttonhole. So there's my button, it's shiny. There, you can see the buttonholes, and I have some needles set aside over here. So you want to make sure that the needle passes easily through the buttonhole before you get started. So this is the biggest needle I have, and it looks like it's going to pass pretty easily through the buttonhole. But remember, as you fill up the buttonhole, it will get harder and harder to move the needle in and out. So you may want to use an even thinner needle if you can. So this one is definitely very, very roomy for that. When you cut off things to hand sew, I think of Mary Poppins and saying enough is as good as a feast. You don't want to cut off tons and tons of thread. So 12 to 18 inches is generally enough to sew a single button on. And I don't recommend running the thread up the side of up the inside of your work. So I would do each button separately. When you are threading, threading the needle, you want to fold it around the needle and pinch it in your hand. And then you can push the needle on top of that pinched thread to thread it. And it's faster if you use the thread doubled, because that gives you the most number of stitches. Let me move that out of the way. So I want to use my thread doubled. Okay. Now, I did not do what a clever person in the class did. She placed markers and then matched her buttonholes to her markers as she went along making her sweater, as she was actually knitting the buttonholes. And I did not. So I only have one of my buttonholes marked on the other side. We're going to see if this will work with the black. So what I want to do is figure out where on my, I have one marker there. I'm not even sure that belongs there. I'm just taking that off. I think that was to mark the number of rows.
Yeah, I matched mine as I went along.
So you've got yours all marked out. So if you did not match yours as you went along, I'm going to show you a nice way to figure out where to place your buttons.
Okay.
And that is, and I'm just going to do it in the middle. So I'm lining up the bottom of my sweater, which is off camera, and the top of my sweater, which is also off camera, and laying it flat out on a table, which I'm unable to do with the camera because the camera is so little. So just imagine that you've got the top lined up and the bottom lined up, and you lay out the button band, the buttonhole band on top of your button band, as it would be when you're buttoning your sweater up. You want to find a buttonhole, and what I think is the nicest way to do it is to actually just take your threaded needle and put it in the buttonhole, and then lift the buttonhole band off. So do that again. So put it in the buttonhole. I'm putting my other hand underneath so that when I lift this off, my needle is right at the level where I want my buttonhole to go. Okay. In the pattern, they tell you to go 5/8 of an inch in. So they want you to go across from the edge to beyond the halfway point. So we measured that earlier, and we found that that was roughly inside of the third rib. So 1, 2, 3. So here's the level that I want to put my buttonhole, and it's inside of the third rib. And I'm just going to pull my needle out. I'm going to go in right here, my first stitch. And at the end of this, I'm going to make a little bit of a knot, leaving about a 2-inch tail. So I made a knot and I left a tail. And what I want to do, I've come through the fabric right there. Can you see it? And all its blackness. It's all its beauty. I could use a different color thread. And what I want to do is actually loop my needle. So I haven't even gotten the button involved yet. I want to take my needle through the thread. So now this tail is sitting there, and this is secured. I've pulled it through. And now I'm going to sew the button on. you want to sew your buttons on in the same orientation, and you want to pick which side of your button to show. So this side of my button is a little more textured and it's concave. I think I'd like the smoother side up. So I'm going to go right into the button and then back in the same place on my sweater. I'm going to do it so that my buttonholes are vertical and not horizontal and not crooked. And then you just go in and out several times until you essentially fill up the buttonhole to your satisfaction. It can be less, it can be more. Now, some people like to leave a little bit of a shank. So they hold it up a little bit from the surface of the sweater and do it so that there's a little bit more of a shank underneath. And then to finish that, we're going to come up and come down the last time. And this time we're going to stay on the surface and we're going to go around the button and loop our needle through. So I'm taking the thread around my button and looping my needle through once. So that's going around the whole button. I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to do it a third time just to be, you know, super, super safe. So now it's pretty firm around that button. And I have this little tail. And what I like to do is tie a double knot using my tail. So that's on the surface of the sweater. It's on the front side of the sweater, but it's underneath the button. And so when I trim it, I'm going to trim that edge right up at the side of the button. And nobody's going to see it. And there's my button.
Very nice.
And it's, let's see if we can see that better. So there's, you can see I've gone around it. So there's a little bit of a shank. It's a little bit raised up. And then that hopefully will go through my buttonhole. Here. Were you able to see enough of that with the black?
I was. I like the, I've never done the double strand with the coming through and then doing the loop through the double strand before. That's a great idea.
I just like that for securing them.
No,
And then
that's great.
if you don't like the placement of it, it's very easy to just like cut off these strands here and reposition it with a new piece of thread.
No,
So
that's really great.
that's how you do it.
Perfect. I have to get buttons now. That's the one thing I haven't done. I have to go get some buttons.
We have some, but also Fine Points has lovely buttons.
I know she
Designing Woman-
does.
Designing Woman has lovely buttons. So if you don't see what you want at the shop, I do recommend going and looking. I'm also looking in your button jar if you have one.
I know my sister stole my button jar. She stole everything that I had, so I'm gonna have to go shopping.
Can you get it
That's
back?
okay. No, she's been using it. She's been using it. So she's been crafty.
Okay.
She's been crafty.
There's
okay.
one. I'm gonna have to double check that that's in the right place because again, I only have about 10 inches at my desk between the computer and the camera.
Right.
I'm not sure if I've got it exactly in the right place. And so lining it up is really an important step.
Yeah, that's why I made sure when I was doing my buttonholes, I went across and made sure I made a marker. I put a light bulb marker
Yeah, that was
while I was
smart.
doing it. So,
Smart
yeah.
you.
Well, hell, I bought that whole big box. I might as well use them.
Absolutely. This is the last time we're meeting for this sweater.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's been a real pleasure doing the Quintessential Cardigan.
Yes.
Big applause to Churchmouse Yarns and Teas for their design.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to be starting the next sweater club on July 22nd, 10 a.m. in person in the classroom and 6 p.m. on Zoom at 6 p.m. Eastern time on Zoom. That sweater is the Order of the Garter, which I had out a minute ago. Oh, here it is. So I can show a picture of it. So
Hot
tight.
pink. Hot pink.
You're going to make it in hot pink?
Yeah.
I love it. I
Mm-hmm.
made a hot pink sweater this year and I just love it. It's so fun.
I know. I had a hard time picking out which pink, but I settled on this one. So
So what is it?
terrazzo.
Terrazzo, perfect. So I think terrazzo would be a great choice. It is a simple top-down sweater done in garter stitch with a applied I-cord edging around the front of the fronts and around the neck. I'm not sure. I don't.
I just did I applied I-cord on the rocket tee. So
So you should
around
be all set to do that.
the neck and the bottom, lots of applied I-cord. So
So we'll be necklaces. Let's see. It also has 8 buttons. The garter stitch could be done more. You could use a thicker yarn. It's supposed to be 5 stitches to the inch. You could use a thicker yarn and do it more densely and make it more of a jacket. You could do it more loosely. Terrazzo is a wonderful choice. That's the Scapious yarn Terrazzo, which is a recycled and mulesing free wool with felted tweed. Other good choices, I think, are the non-superwash wools. I think it would be better not to use a superwash wool because superwash wools are a little more drapey.
I know. I wasn't gonna. I was staying away from Rios because it would have been like hanging.
So if you do it in a superwash wool, I want you to think about doing much firmer gauge than possibly 5 stitches to the inch, or doing it like in a
like
thicker
even
yarn.
with the terrazzo.
No, terrazzo I think will be fine.
Okay.
It's not super wash, but it's not really.
I think it's got a little heft to it. I mean, it should be,
and it's got that texture, that tweedy texture that I think will help it hold its body.
I was gonna swatch this weekend. I was gonna get a couple different sizes and needles and see where I get the 5 stitches an inch. So
wool stock from Blue Sky, Kelburn Woolen, Scout. I think all of those have great potential. I think Andorra could work. We have a couple people who are thinking about doing Scout with a mohair running with it, which I think would be lovely and just a little extra something something.
This was Andorra. It was nice. It was really nice.
Is this your cardigan?
The cardigan, yeah, was Andorra. It's nice.
The Andorra might be a little bit on the thinner side for this. It would make a lighter weight sweater, which might not be the worst thing in the world. And we are going to talk about sizing because it's not inclusively sized. It only goes up to a size 46 measurement. And that's not the biggest size that human beings are, or the small, and the small size isn't the smallest that human beings are. So we are going to talk about altering the pattern to fit the person, either by changing our gauge or increasing the number of stitches or something. So if you are interested in doing this and you do not see the size that you would want to do in the pattern, still consider doing it because we will be talking about that.
No, that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how you adjust.
Yeah, so the first class on July 22nd is going to be mostly about the fabric, the gauge, and adjusting the pattern to fit you. Things you should maybe consider having available to you are the measurements of a sweater that fits you the way that you want this to fit you, or having the
Okay.
actual sweater and a tape measure, and
Yeah.
and to have picked your yarn by then and started to swatch it so that you can really see that it's working the way that you want it to work. I have picked a yarn and swatched it. It is an Aran weight yarn that I was thinking of doing in a really firm way. So it's also a tweed, but it's an Aran weight tweed. And I put this away for about 2 weeks. I made the swatch a couple of weeks ago, and I kind of feel like it's too firm and I might have to switch. So
It depends. I mean, like
stay tuned.
it would be like a jacket.
It would be
or
more like a jacket, in which case do I want to do a bigger size?
right. Yes.
Which is
Absolutely.
a question. I don't know if I want to do a bigger size. So
Yeah.
but I am pretty happy with the yarn. I'm just not sure if I'm happy with how dense it is at this point. So that's everything we have to talk about today.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So I'm going to do some swatching here over the next couple weeks to see where I land. And yeah, I got another project to work on in between. So
Yep. Get your t-shirt done.
I did. I finished it.
You finished
I
your
finished
t-shirt.
the
Did
t-shirt.
you
So
post
I
it?
have a vest. Not yet. I have to finish. I just finished blocking it. So it's just finished drying. So I'm going to post it. I've got a vest I'm going to do. I have some yarn that I've been sitting on. I'm trying it because I think it has the back. I've never done one. I think this one will start where you do the two shoulders and then connect the back.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
a
I
little
think
practice.
that's going to be like this one.
Yeah, so a little practice before we start this one.
But
So
it's not a set-in sleeve, so you don't worry about like something really complicated. It's not going to be super.
yeah, no, this one, well, this is a vest, so there's no sleeves on this, but this was something a little different where we started up the back and then I'll eventually pick up the shoulders and work the front.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yep, you'll go back. So you'll do the rectangle of the back to the underarm, and then you'll pick up
Right.
each side and work to the front
Yep.
and to the other front until you get to the underarms, and then you'll join it all so that you're doing it as one piece
Exactly.
from the underarms down. And
So
then
that
later,
sounds like a little bit of what, when I read through the Order of the Garter, a little bit of the same construction. So I thought I'll get a little practice.
sounds great. Well, thank you so much for doing the sweater club with us for
It was a
January
pleasure
to June.
spending time with you on Mondays.
It's nice to have you with me on Mondays. I appreciate it.
Enjoy your vacation.
Thank you. I can't wait. Have a great week or two, and I'll see you in July.
Okay. Have a good one.
You too. Bye bye.